Here.
Brian.
Here?
Gallagher.
Here.
Cloutier.
Here.
McNally.
Here. All right. If we could stand, please, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, God. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Lisa, can you tell us about the proof of posting, please?
The agenda was posted in the lower levels of the Emerson Community Center, Cambridge Post Office, the Blueprint Bank, and the village website.
All righty. Thank you. Public appearances. If you want to say something that's not on the agenda here, you've got, we give a couple of minutes if anybody has anything. Otherwise, the agenda has been available, and we can go through it at that time. So,
May I be recognized?
yes, you may, Dean.
Thank you. My name is Dean Lund, resident of Cambridge, Wisconsin, here in the village. That's a map of the proposed project that is being proposed by the energy company, solar company. I am here to voice my personal opposition to the application as it's been submitted to PSC. So with that opposition, I believe we have some concerns in this village village board as to possibly a letter in writing, a letter of opposition to this project as presented. This letter here was a letter that we sent in regards to the recycling facility that was proposed just west of town. It does say the word opposition in it. We could easily just take out that wording of recycling facility and put in the docket as presented to the PSC. So just a nice, simple letter from the village stating opposition to the project as presented. Now, not against solar, but I'm against the application as presented. So I'm going to use an analogy of a teacher. If a student turns in a paperwork and the answer is wrong, you give it a fail. If the company, the developer wishes to go back and amend the application, we can judge it at that merit. But right now, I would like to see the board make a decision, because public comment does close potentially July 3rd. And I would like to see that motion made tonight to address the opposition of the application as presented to the PSC.
Thank you. We'll be talking more about this a little bit later. All right. Are there any other folks that want to talk about something that's not on the agenda? You've got 2 minutes.
Or even if it's on the agenda, public is
Okay.
discussing during.
Right. Roxy, you wanted to say something?
Just a quick announcement. For those of you that are following the PSC website for Invenergy's proposed application here, there was a webinar today by Renew Wisconsin. It's a nonprofit organization promoting solar energy in the state. And they had a webinar from 2 to 3 o'clock, and of course, they encouraged all of their state followers to go on the PSC website and support Cushman Solar. So if you see a lot of public comments from people who are all over the state, it's that Renew Wisconsin is asking all of their members to get on and support Cushman Solar.
All right. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right.
Is it time for comments about this?
You bet.
Up here?
Yeah. It's better for you here because they can mic it and this will be televised. If you could identify yourself, sir?
My name is Mark, and I'm from Cambridge.
Okay, Mark.
All right. I oppose the solar factory. It is not a solar farm. Farm elicits notes of pastoral peace. This is a factory producing product not unlike a pesticide factory or a steel mill. The difference being the footprint of this solar factory will exceed the footprint of United States Steel, biggest steel mill in the U.S., perhaps in the world. If they take advantage of the of expanding according to the proposal, it'll be far bigger than United States Steel. Yeah, they'll deliver more acreage. It certainly will happen. Most important is the factory will occupy more than twice the area of Christiana, Deerfield, and Cambridge. I repeat, twice combined. These villages would be a function of the factory and would cease to be civic entities. I spoke with a representative of Invenergy. He's from Wilmette, an upscale suburb of Chicago. The footprint of his factory would more than cover downtown Wilmette. If there's anybody from the company, I think they should hear that. Let's look at billionaire owner of Invenergy, Michael Polsky. Award-winning business magazine, Inc. Con. Polsky isn't some green warrior seeking to save us from our fossil fuel. He's an energy opportunist. Forbes magazine quotes Polsky himself. I am not an engineer. I am an engineer. I am an engineer, sorry. I am not an environmentalist. I don't take no for an answer. Indeed, he got the state government of Missouri to exert eminent domain over 800 miles of property across the state for that energy project. In other words, we're against a formidable foe who will do whatever it takes to win.
Mark, I'm going to have to give you 30 seconds more.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
too bad.
yeah.
He doesn't take no for an answer. Forbes says to Polsky, it's just a deal. I better skip ahead. He chose our location because it is flat. He says our population has an affinity to renewable energy and the proximity to the power grid. That is from Invenergy. Flat, I don't know. Our affinity to solar energy and solar factories, well, I would say no. The energy, yes. The factory, no. This is the cost of doing business, finding this grid. Their cost of doing business, why should we bear the burden of their investment? In other words, find your own grid access, get off our backs.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to have to cut you off at that.
Sure.
All righty. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for coming here. Okay, public appearances, any more? Lisa, I see that we have somebody new sitting next to you. I'm wondering if you could introduce this person.
Chrissy Brunwood started yesterday as our new treasurer, deputy administrator. So she comes to us with government experience, accounting experience, and we're excited to have her on board.
All
Welcome to
right,
Cambridge. Yep.
Thank you.
welcome, and we're looking forward to great things.
Just jump right into the fire.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Let's move on now to approval of the consent agenda, which includes the village board minutes, June 8th, Plan Commission, Energy Subcommittee, Water and Sewer Committee, Licensing Committee, as well as the resignation of Trustee Rose as the village representative on the library board to be replaced by Trustee Cumbier. Looking for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right. Anybody care to second?
I'll second.
All right. Discussion? I just want to say thank you, Wyatt, for your involvement with the library board. I understand Wyatt's been very busy on other things, and we'll be hearing more about that a little bit later with the solar farm. Ted has stepped forward, and you're going to do a great job with that library. Keep those books on time.
Oh, you bet.
Okay, all right. We've got a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it carries. Going on to item 6, the president's report. There's a couple of things that I want to mention. Number 1, this is for the folks really that are out there in TV land. And Gary, it's nice to see you again. This Friday is the first concert on the square. And I believe there are 4 of those from Ms. Strauss. And do you know much about this? I'll let you speak if you want to, Carla.
I don't know.
I don't know which entertainment is. Is it not the Drifters this week, is it?
No, I can go on Facebook and look.
It's okay. The main thing is that we do have the concerts. They are getting started. What is it, 6 o'clock on Fridays?
6:30
Yeah,
to 8:30.
6:30 to 8:30.
You should ask Wyatt.
I'm beginning to see that.
My family's very into the concert. So we'll be
Okay,
at all.
all right.
Or
Should-
their neighbor.
Yes, I
Yeah.
should ask Eric,
Yeah.
who's
Wilbur was
working.
out planning this morning.
Okay, all right. So the concerts are coming back, and that is great to see. The other thing I want to mention is I attended a meeting here with the Cambridge Area Senior Resource Team. We're working on the directory. We have been working on that directory. We've been doing that for some time. It's really been put together. It's in the final stages. So, I made some comments yesterday when I was online. And then there's also a new program, and I wanted to get more information, but it just wasn't appropriate for me to ask, on this Computer Buddy. And what they're doing is they are linking folks that want to learn about computers with elementary school students so that they are teaching them, our older residents, on how to get online and to be able to use the computer, which I thought was pretty good. So I tip my hat to the Cambridge Area Senior Resource Network. And the next meeting is coming up on July 19th, and they'll be presenting their final for their new brochure. Okay, those are the items that I wanted to talk about. Library board, Wyatt?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot for us on the village. They continued to discuss their handbook, so their employee handbook, but put a hold on that for now to wait for their new chair of the library board, which they don't have yet because current one is retiring. She's going to maybe stay on for a couple more meetings, though, just because they don't have anyone right now, and decided to stick it out for at least another meeting or 2.
Right.
So I think that's it, right? Was there anything else, Mark, that you can think
They
of?
had 3 applications, which is a remarkable number.
Yep.
And so I think they're planning on the next meeting to bring the applicants in and have them talk about why they would like to be on the board. So they're looking forward to doing that. That was the main item.
Mhm.
The rest of it was just, budgets and,
Yep.
things like that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Wyatt. Village office updates. Lisa.
Like you said, Christy started yesterday. It's wonderful to have her on board. As you know, we've been short-staffed over the last month or so, and it'll be wonderful. She's jumping right in, getting started. The audit is complete. We're just waiting for the final paperwork from them. At that point, we'll get an audit and finance committee scheduled so they can do a presentation. Tied to that, we did refer the request from the CD players to audit finance. We can look at it at that time. We did just receive notification. We will be receiving $160,666.
Say again?
$160,666.23. That will be divided over 2 years. We'll get 2 installment payments. So I know at the last board meeting we talked about members. If you have ideas, suggestions on that money, we referred the public request to audit and finance so we can start looking at that. We'll get a little more detail on the specifics on how it can be used and what type of programs. So we'll be working on that. As you know, we've had a lot of meetings, have a lot coming up. Economic Development, Energy Subcommittee, Licensing, Plan Commission, Water and Sewer, Public Works. A lot of work going into all those meetings beforehand and the follow-up after the meetings. So that's taking up a lot of time. Ongoing projects, the winery, we're working with the attorney. The bike trail, we're having a pre-construction meeting next week. They're hoping to get started on that in July. Possibly a groundbreaking ceremony August for that, so that's moving forward. We've talked at past meetings. We are looking, and now that we're televised again, public members for Plan Commission, Water and Sewer Committee, Zoning Board of Appeals. So if any of you listening or any of you in the room know of people interested in those positions, please have them reach out to us. We are looking for citizen members for those committees.
Okay. So we're okay as far as getting the funding with respect to the Department of Revenue.
Yep.
I received a letter at my personal residence. It came from our friends with the Department of Revenue. It came addressed to me.
Yep.
And my wife thought it was an income tax audit invitation. And I had to assure her that it was good.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so-
We're submitted and have the confirmation. They've received our paperwork. And
Okay, all right.
160,666.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Lisa. Questions for Lisa? All right, we're going to move on. Bills. Lisa, what's the highlight here?
Shoot, I didn't bring my little, oh, Chrissy did it. I didn't bring my sticky note. The first, well, and it's on the sheet. The first run had been $30,077.37. Second run was $49,605.81 for a total of $79,683 and 18 cents.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills and set them out.
Second.
Okay, we get a motion and a second to pay the bills of $79,683.18. Are there any questions?
What were the court costs
Um,
that were peppered in there?
I know one of them is the internet. Carol's been working from home, so they're paying the internet
The court costs?
for court.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carol, the court clerk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I know that was one of the costs. And they will purchase, and I'd have to look at the bills, if they purchase supplies and so forth.
Okay.
And then those costs are split with Deerfield.
Okay. Other questions? All right, given that this is a rather substantial amount, what do you say we go with a roll call?
Trustee Rose,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Whitworth,
Yes.
Breinig,
Yes.
Gallard,
Yes.
Kumbir,
Yes.
McNally.
Yes. All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on. New business. Village of Cambridge Resolution 2021-05 relating to the 2020 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report. Lisa?
This is something we have to do annually. It is our report to the DNR on our sewage collection system. There's 2 aspects, the operation and the financial aspect. We do have A's on both of those. The board does have to pass a resolution and submit it to the state that we have received this.
And I think this is the first time in a long time that we have A's.
A couple years now, we've had A's. For a while, we didn't have an A in the financial because we didn't have the reserves set up that they
That
needed.
was needed for
Yeah,
that.
so
Yep.
we have corrected
Okay.
that and have A's on
You bet.
both aspects.
Is this something that our staff does, or does DNR actually do the report
Our
for us?
staff fills out the information in the report.
And does DNR certify the results?
Yeah.
So- Okay.
Yeah, they grade it. So we submit it, they give the grade, we do the resolution, and we've received it, accepted it, and,
Okay.
But this is the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do we have anything to do with this? Do we have anything to follow up
signature.
We have
with
to
this?
pass the
Pass
resolution.
the rest, okay.
I'll make a
All right.
motion to pass resolution 2021-05 relating to the 2020 compliance maintenance report. CMAR?
I'll second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor of passing the resolution 2021-05, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, moving on. We've got another Cambridge Resolution 2021-04 granting alcohol and tobacco licenses for the licensing year of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Chuck,
Yeah,
take that.
yeah, we had a meeting last week and it was fairly uneventful. All the Class A, B, C, the beer, liquor, wine, tobacco, and operator license, all the applications were completed on time and properly. All the fees have been paid. Background checks for the operators have been completed by Lisa and the police department, so I want to thank you for getting that done. Of note, they're all renewals, so no surprises here. There was some discussion about the plow. There's an ordinance, correct me if I'm wrong, that the establishment needs to be open greater than 150 days to maintain a liquor license. We didn't enforce anything this past year due to COVID. That's something we can look at in the next year moving forward. And that was pretty much it. I make a motion to approve all of them, or do I have to go through?
Yeah,
Yeah.
here it's a resolution, so
Okay.
pass the resolution.
I'll make a motion to grant the alcohol and tobacco licenses for the licensing year of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
I will second.
Okay, discussion?
So the plows was approved until 2022?
It was approved.
Due to COVID.
All right.
So I see we're carrying on with the liquor being able to come out to curbside delivery. Was there any discussion about that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we brought it up, and then there was no issue in terms of any reason why that would impede their licensing. But so.
It was a lengthy discussion when
Yeah, it
that
was a
passed.
concern, but there have been no complaints
No
or
complaints.
issues with that, so,
Okay. Other questions? Okay. All those in favor of approval of the licenses for this year, ending June 30th, 2022, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. That resolution passes. Okay, we're going to move on to the beekeeping. Too many meetings. Where's this one?
Sure. This came up at the Plan Commission. Dancing Goat, Mike Reiber's here. They had presented their landscaping plans, which includes they want to have bees. And if I recall correctly, you're not actually going to have bees this year because you're not going to be planting wildflowers because of the drought that we're in. The wildflower seeds actually require rain, so it's no point throwing them out there. But in the future, they would like to have bees, and it brought into question the fact that we do allow bees per ordinance, but it says in the ordinance that there's supposed to be an application, which there was no application. So there are places here in town that do have bees, but without an application in place, there's no way to enforce anything. So the Plan Commission unanimously requested that in the packet here, there's an application which includes a $50 fee. It's a one-time fee, and mostly it's just to cover the costs of notifying neighbors that someone nearby is going to be having bees, what you can do to be nice to the bees and have the bees be nice to you, and also make sure that the person that's filling out the application knows how to properly take care of bees. So the one thing for the ordinance, you're allowed to have them within 20 feet, no closer than 20 feet to the property line. But if it's within 50 feet of the property line, you have to have some sort of barrier, 5 foot, whether that be vegetation or fence. And that's to prevent bees from flying into people. There's a nice little thing in the packet from DATCAP, that Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection. They have a pollinator program, and there's information about it. Did I get it?
Mike, you gonna put those out by the Rick House, or?
No, actually, it's...
Mike, why don't you come up, and, because they aren't going to be able to hear you.
I hear you.
Oh, Mike projects pretty good.
Well, it gets mic'd, and then
You've never been told that before.
Yeah.
So, Mike Reiber from the Dancing Goat Distillery. To answer your question on the location of the bees, the intent is that they're at a centralized location, which is actually on the back side of the wooded conservation area. So it's more than 500 feet away from any property line. So it's really tucked away. It's kind of given an alcove. As the development progresses, there'll be additional vegetation that's favorable for the bees and other pollinators, as well as water sources and things like that that come with that development. So we feel that centrally located location is the ideal one to propose.
Is it far enough away from the bike trail and everything else like that?
Bike trail,
It's over at the Rick
yeah,
House.
a long,
Okay.
long way
Middle
from
of
there.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
No, good question.
And you aren't going to have any available honey to be purchased. It's all going to be utilized in your own.
Yeah, we're planning on using it for our own purposes. at this
Then
point.
you can buy it.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
That's
Thank
great,
you.
though.
Mike, I have a question. It says you listed like a bee, I guess, expert that you're going to be working with. And you had also listed somewhere in here the plants that you were looking at.
Yep, we have different Wisconsin-based wildflowers, which are pollinator friendly. We actually have a pollinator mix that's identified that has several different varieties for plant diversity, as well as some wetland area pollinator, Wisconsin-oriented wetland plants that are more accustomed to the retention pond area. So there really isn't a one size fits all. There's a ditch mix, and there's we're putting micro clover in the grass seed, so we're having different levels of when they pollinate, when the flowers bloom, early, late spring, early, late summer, early, late fall. So we've kind of built that into the project.
Are you working with anyone to ensure that they're native Wisconsin species and nothing particularly invasive
Well,
coming into the
one, we're
area?
not required to be totally Wisconsin,
No, it's just,
but we are sourcing Wisconsin seed mixes. That's what we're drawing our references from.
okay.
So we've looked at other stuff. We want to stay with more Wisconsin native grasses and
Great.
plants.
You taught me that about lavender, right?
Yeah, lavender is one of those that there are a couple lavender farms in Wisconsin, and we're not looking to be a lavender farm, but it's one of those things that have a unique scent, a unique appearance and look, and then they also have unique chemicals that are found in the honey that comes from that. So
Oh.
lavender is one of those things that we may use as a decorative item, something that gives us an opportunity to be a little innovative and maybe do something that's attractive as well as functional for the bee pollinators.
Okay. Any other
That's great.
questions for Mike?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it.
All right. I'm gonna need a motion here for approval of this application. Anybody care?
I can make a motion, to approve the beekeeping application.
All right. All right. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Yep.
Aye. Oh, okay. Opposed? All right, that passes. Now we need another motion here on the resolution 2021-06 related to the fee schedule.
That's $50.
Yes.
One-time fee.
One-time fee. And we're okay with that, Lisa? We had looked at it and...
Yep, I had looked at other municipalities and what they charge, and it's right in that area. So, like Trustee Whitwer said, it's covering the cost of mailing to neighbors, getting the paperwork necessary and so forth, so.
Okay, all right.
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution 2021-06 related to fee schedules.
All right,
I'll second.
okay. A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Let's move on. Let's see here. Temporary liquor license, the Cambridge Area Lions Club. They've got some dates here. I think that kind of ties back in with concerts, although it looks like there's only going to be 3, so the first one they must be missing.
The dry concert.
Ah, okay. So bring your own.
BYOB.
Yes.
But no bottles allowed in the park.
Okay. No bottles
Just
allowed.
at Eric's.
Come across the street.
Sit down there.
Yeah, we'll all go over to Eric's house. Yep, Eric,
You
you're
setting up
gonna...
a bar?
Yeah,
Sure, we get that on film.
yep,
My
yeah,
temporary
we're
license.
gonna do that right now for you, Eric.
Awesome.
Okay, anybody care to make a motion on this?
I will make a motion to approve a temporary liquor license for the Cambridge Area Lions Club for July 9th, July 23rd, and August 13th for Veterans Park for the summer concert series.
All right,
And I'll second that.
all right, any discussion other than just where are you at, Eric? No, we're not, no, Eric's out of this. Okay, so we're gonna approve this. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. All right, okay, carries. Okay, moving on, item E, new business, park reservation, Cambridge Farm to School Fall Festival, Veterans Park, October 9th. Lisa?
They did apply to use Veterans Park for a fall festival. I have talked to them. They will be coming forward with a temporary liquor license to serve beer. I have told them they, to work with the police on setup and so forth. A one-day event.
Okay, this kind of ties back in, and it just triggered a memory. We know that we do not have the Chamber of Commerce, and so they're not at the old Badger Bank, so therefore their restrooms are no longer open, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to use the restroom, they have to come down here, or,
We're not open on Saturday.
yeah,
But if they want, they can use West Side Park, but they applied for Veterans Park.
okay, all right. They're aware of that.
Eric's situation.
Pay my water bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric, you're going to have a whole lot of fun.
You could rent porta potties and charge,
If they, should they, if that's a concern for them, can they reapply for a different park?
They could ask to switch it, or they could bring in porta potties themselves.
Mhm.
But it's not our responsibility to bring porta potties for anyone wanting to use the
Nope.
park, so. There are facilities available at the other park.
Lisa, what's the entity that is making this reservation?
It is Cambridge Farm to School. They are their own separate entity.
Okay.
It's not, I did question that if they
Yeah.
were part of the
Cart
school,
or-
but they are their own 501c3.
Okay.
Wasn't that Ben Timp that came last year?
It could have been, yeah,
Benjamin Timp, he lives over kind of by the
yeah.
high school.
They are a separate entity.
So when they're filling out these applications, do they know that there's not restroom facilities? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
And that also goes for
Run in the
concerts.
park, so,
Concerts as well, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Some of
man.
them, they should have restroom facilities.
Eric's going to be busy. Take a number.
And the concerts definitely know this, that,
Yeah.
Lori knows that
Yeah.
the restrooms will be closed up there. They will
Well,
not be
and-
open.
That's not our decision. It's
Yeah.
not our building, we have nothing to do with it,
Yeah,
and
maybe
they
But-
know that.
But do we have to leave this building open on Friday night?
No,
So this is locked down too?
yeah. We're
White's is the only one open.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
White's is within walking
Wow.
distance.
White
Yeah.
too?
That one's why
We're not a business anymore. Used to.
Yeah, it's.
You know, maybe they can work something out with the bank or
and
something,
that's-
and
We told them to call the bank. It's,
Okay, all right.
we
Um,
had the discussion with organizations about using the other park that has the facilities, but it's their choice which one they.
yeah.
Oh, you did
Yes.
have a conversation with them about the bathroom, farm to school?
I did not
Oh.
specifically talk to them about the restrooms.
Okay,
They know there's none in the park,
right.
so.
They
Yeah.
may have assumed that the chamber was open. But, so if they have an issue, can they reapply?
Yeah.
Do they have to bring that reapplication back before the board?
I could just do an update that they're asking to switch.
Okay, so when we make a motion to approve, can we say park of their potential, yeah, whatever? Okay.
all right. You care to make that motion?
I will.
Okay.
I will make a motion to approve the park reservation for Cambridge Farm to School Fall Festival for the park to be decided. Possibly Veterans Park is listed here for October 9th, 2021.
And I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion necessary? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Right.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Okay, now we're going to get back into the Dancing Goat Distillery and the Rick House project. I got a feeling we're going to be talking with Mike again, but we'll start. Lisa, you have...
We also have Dan here from MSA. So part of our agreements was the Dancing Goat did put in the water mains up at the Rick House project. MSA oversaw that. I did forward to you a letter accepting that work, and then it would be releasing a letter of credit to go with it. So Dan or Mike, if you have anything to add to that.
No, I don't have anything to add to that. I think you summarized it very well, and as I said, MSA provided a letter recommending acceptance of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mike, any comments? You know what, okay, if you want to stay back there, geez.
No concerns on our part. We put in the 2 hydrants that was part of the development plan, and we left a stub in ready for the next expansion, which we would basically redo the entire process, open up another letter of credit for that next segment as the development continues to go forward.
Okay.
So this is right along the lines of what we agreed to. We're happy with that.
All right. So are we looking to do anything else besides just hear reports then?
We are accepting the water main and the
Letter of credit.
letter of credit.
Okay. Motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the water mains.
A second.
All right.
Add the letter of credit in there. that way too, can't
Is
you?
that,
No.
that's 2 motions?
Do a second motion.
Oh, you can't, okay.
Okay, we're going to accept the water mains. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Carries.
Letter
Okay.
of credit's money, so do we need it?
Yes and no, we're not spending money.
We're just accepting the water main.
Letter of credit I'm
But
talking
the
about.
letter of credit, yeah.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion on the letter of credit?
I'll make a motion to accept the letter of credit
A second.
All right,
for the Dancing Goat Distillery.
okay, since we are not spending money. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right. Moving on, well, number 3, water treatment facilities, the scope of the project and engineering services from MSA.
Ted, you wanna-
Yeah,
You want to lead off?
I can lead off a little bit. They gave us a proposal that they've been working on for the last few months now. we're going to have to redo well number 3. And they gave us a proposal for the engineering fees and project management fees and everything that goes along with it to get well number 3 built out. And it's right around, I believe it's right around $275,000 for these fees. And that's, but we have to continue going ahead with this project because the DNR is mandating that this well go online no later than end of 2023, or is it 2022? 2022 at the end of the year. So we don't have much time to get this thing done.
Do we have any preliminary estimates on what it's going to cost in 2022?
We were before they did their study, we're at $2.5 million. But things have changed since then also.
Yeah, we'll be going out for bid to see the final cost, but the engineering costs are usually roughly
A percentage of the,
10%.
something like that.
Dan, you're hedging. So what do you know that?
Yeah.
I was listening and waiting.
I think you can go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dan Gravy with MSA. So yeah, I was, as the minutes to the Water and Sewer Committee meeting from last week indicate, I was here and we talked about the water system capacity evaluation that MSA has been working on. The primary outcome or recommendation of that evaluation is a recommendation for a capacity of 600 gallons per minute for the new water treatment facilities at well number 3. And so then as an extension of the capacity evaluation, we did provide proposed scope and fee for design and bidding services for the well 3 water treatment project. And that's what's provided in your packet tonight. There's 6 pages, pages 51 through 55 in your packet. This is the same document that was provided to the committee last week. I wanted to address the question of project cost. Your previous consultant did put together an estimate totaling right around, I think you're right around $2.5 million. We haven't developed a detailed cost estimate. We did a quick review of their estimate. I think they're probably close. We have a couple concerns about their estimate, one being their estimated equipment cost. We think is on the low side, and not just because we're now proposing larger equipment for a larger capacity, but because we're working on a very similar project right now with smaller capacity, around 400 gallons a minute, and we're being quoted prices that are, I'll say, significantly higher than what's shown in that estimate. And that estimate, in their defense, that estimate is a year old. The second area of concern, I guess, is right now at least the volatility of the construction market and the prices for steel and lumber. Now some of that might calm down by the time we bid this project. We hope it does. But there's some, I'll say, uncertainty associated with cost because of that. Our scope, again, it's a 6-page document. The first page is a summary of the anticipated project scope. The next 3 pages are the scope of engineering services, and for this this proposal includes design and bidding services, so it doesn't include the construction administration, construction observation, or any of that at this point. It's just design and bidding services. And then the last 2 pages is our development of our proposed fees for this part of the project, and the question came up as far as percentage of construction cost, and we don't typically work on a percentage of any estimated construction cost. What we do instead is put together a detailed scope or list, is what you see on these 2 pages, is a list of all the tasks associated with getting the project done. And then we have a spreadsheet where we list the people that we anticipate would work on the project, the number of hours that each of those people would work on the project, and then carry the math forward to get to total planned hours and total anticipated cost for each task. And then, of course, the sum total for the project is the total of all those individual tasks. I'm here tonight not to repeat what many of you heard last week at the committee meeting, or to read through, in detail the scope or any of the items that are in your packet, but I did want to be here tonight because this is a very significant project, and we think a very important project for the village. So I wanted to be here to try to address any questions or comments or concerns you might have.
And we had a proposal, 11 years ago now, or a little longer than that? And those costs were projected at right around $1 million to do the project 11 years ago. But things have changed, and we've increased the water flow. I think the other one was probably based on 300 gallons a minute. It wasn't that much. And then they were starting to downsize the equipment, which was, I really questioned that, and so I'm sure MSA has sized the equipment to do the job.
Well, again, in the capacity evaluation, we looked at historic water demands in the village, and we looked at projected growth of the village. And, there's as much of an art as a science to any of this, but these facilities, the equipment itself should have a life of, 50 years at least, and the building that you put it in should have a life of 75 to 100 years.
Right.
And there is an economy of scale to these things, so it is usually in your best interest to, I'll say, err on the conservative side in terms of capacity. But what I saw, and again, not to knock anybody here, but what I saw from the previous consultant is that they were basing the design capacity simply on the capacity of the pump that's in well 3, which didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So while we're proposing a larger capacity, which is going to translate into an increased cost for equipment, we think there are some savings to be had in terms of the building, because we had a lot of questions about the proposed building layout that the previous consultant was proposing, and we just thought it was pretty inefficient, and again, I think there's some cost savings to be had in terms of building design.
Dan, help me out here. If we have this and it's $2.5 million, and I realize you don't have your final numbers, but that's what we've got. And if we're looking at a 20-year bond for this, this will result in the ratepayers having to pick up an additional $125,000 per year without interest, if I'm just doing some quick math. Am I correct? 20 times 125 getting us to that.
Yeah, I mean, the good news here is that, we're anticipating the project will be funded through the DNR Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. That's a 20-year loan with an interest rate currently about a little less than 1.5% per year, and it's fixed for the 20-year term of the loan. So yeah, I mean, if you strictly divided 2.5 million by 20 years and looked at the principal cost only, yeah, you would be right.
Okay. So this is a loan instead of us going out for a bonding referendum.
Right. It's a loan through the DNR, as again the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. It's a revenue bond, so it doesn't count against your GO borrowing capacity, but it is typically funded on through the strength of your water rates. Now, there are other options perhaps out there that, we haven't obviously got into or discussed yet. I don't know if the village has TIF districts that could potentially fund a portion of this, but that's one way perhaps of keeping the impact on the rates less. Whatever you do here, the project is going to have to go to the Wisconsin Public Service Commission for construction authorization, and it seems fairly likely that some rate increase may be required. Besides having the funding the capital cost of the project, PSC requires you to fund depreciation and to
And
ensure
equipment
certain...
costs, correct?
Pardon?
And replacement equipment costs.
Yeah, that's essentially the depreciation
Sure.
expense, right?
Yep.
And they want to make sure that your water utility has a reasonable rate of return. And I don't know, I haven't looked at your last PSC report to see what your rate of return might be now, but those are all things that factor into PSC's evaluation of what they believe your water rates will need to be. So these are all reasons why, we provided this proposal at this time with, in the interest of at least starting construction next year in 2022, because there's design work to be done, DNR approvals to be obtained, and Public Service Commission approvals to be obtained, perhaps including a water rate increase. And, these all take time, obviously. In the case of DNR and Public Service Commission, you can expect review times of typically 3 months. So,
And then my last question is, we have to have this done by the end of 2022.
That's correct.
Okay. It's a big amount. All right. Okay.
Question for you. You said that your fees do not include construction oversight. Is that common for this type of project?
Yes.
no, it's, we would come to the village board, likely after the project is bid. That way you'll know who the contractor is. We can talk about things, like whether the village staff might have the capability to provide some construction observation.
Okay.
But it is, I think, very important to know who the contractor is going to
They
be.
need to oversee it because their name is on the plans and specifications.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of construction administration required.
Yep.
Shop drawing reviews, we would be reviewing all the equipment and material that is going to be used on the project. If the project is funded by the Wisconsin Safe Drinking Water Loan Program, that requires the use of American iron and steel. So one of our jobs would be to, ensure or certify that AIS is being complied with. And also there's a requirement for federal wage rates on the project. So we would be doing wage rate monitoring. So there's a significant amount of construction and administration, and then on-site construction observation itself.
Okay.
And we like to wait till after the project is bid, as I say, know who the contractor is, and kind of can gauge better what level of construction observation might be warranted.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick question, Dan. So can you speak a little bit more about the output evaluation? You guys landed on 600,000 gallons per minute, and that's assuming you're expecting Cameron to grow and expand. That 600,000 gallons per minute, what's that based on, like a future population or requirement? How do you guys land on that?
Actually, I was just going to ask permission to read, you did a 10-page memorandum, and it was very informative, and I was just going to ask the president if I could read, not go through the whole 10 pages, but a couple paragraphs that relate to that question. Can I read this?
Yes,
Okay.
you may.
And this is all from you, Dan. I appreciate this. I had this highlighted. I thought it was very informative. The projection of future water demands is based on the historical demands and the anticipated population growth. The Wisconsin Department of Administration Demographic Services Center, DSC, has developed population projections for all cities, villages, and townships through 2040. For the village of Cambridge, the DSC projects the population to increase from the year 2020 estimated population of 1,591 to a year 2040 population of 1,880. This represents an increase of 18.2% or 0.91% per year. Water treatment facilities, in particular, the associated structures and piping, are expected to have a design life significantly greater than 20 years. However, because the reliability of population projections becomes much less beyond 20 years, and the peak day water demands will not necessarily increase in direct proportion to the population, standard design practice is to assume a 20-year design life. Assuming the new water treatment facility at well number 3 go into service in the year 2023, the design year for those facilities would be the year 2043. Based on the DSC population projection, the year 2043 population would be 1,591 plus, and then there's a calculation listed here, but it equals 1,922 population for Cambridge. This represents an increase of 20.8% over the current estimated population. So getting to your point, Chuck, for design purposes, it is assumed that the population in both the average and peak day water demands will increase by 20% between now and the design year 2043. Based on the assumed historic average day water demand of 205,000 gallons per day, the projected year 2043 average day water demand is 246,000 gallons per day. Based on the assumed historic peak day water demands of 525,000 gallons per day, the projected 2043 peak day water demand is 630,000 gallons per day.
Yeah, so as you can see, there's a lot that goes into it, and as I said earlier, it almost becomes more of an art than a science, because you're projecting things that aren't the easiest to necessarily defend. I'll have to be quite honest. You know, do you believe that the population of the village is going to increase by 20% in the next 20 years? Or will it be less, or will it be more? If it is going to increase by 20%, are your peak day water demands going to also increase at that same rate? So there's a lot of unknowns there. And I guess finally, even though we're looking at a 20-year design as standard engineering practice, nobody really wants to think that 20 years from now you're going to be out of capacity and have to do another project. So again, as I say, it usually behooves you to err a bit on the conservative side, and we think the 600 gallons per minute, in our opinion, is a good conservative number.
And we need well number 3 is probably going to be our main well once this project is completed. And then well number 2, we're probably going to take a look at probably rehabbing that also to increase the water rate, and then we have to increase filtration and softening ability over there at well number 2.
The evaluation does also include some recommendations for well 2 after well 3 is complete.
It's completed and online.
Well 3 originally had a capacity of 350 gallons a minute. Now it's down to 275. I think it would be fairly low-hanging fruit to increase that capacity to at least 350 gallons per minute. We made some other recommendations in the evaluation, including providing standby power.
Yes.
Because right now all you have out there is a right-angle drive to run the pump, but you don't have any power, electricity out there to run chemical feed or have lights or heat in the building or anything. So one of the recommendations there is to put in standby power. We also recommended connecting the backwash or discharging the backwash from the filter and the softeners to the sanitary sewer.
Right.
So there's some recommendations in there, but I don't think, in my opinion, there isn't going to be any urgent need to increase the capacity of well 2 beyond 350 gallons a minute. Not in the foreseeable future, but again, the final recommendation in the evaluation is that you monitor your water demands annually, and look or keep that in mind, certainly as proposals for development come into the village, that you can you can meet those water demands in the future.
I have a question, and it's going to be more for Lisa and Ted. How do we pay for this? I mean, I see what it is. It's this 200 and $37,000.
That would all be part of the loan.
But his work is up front, and the loan wouldn't be going in until later.
It's very common for communities to take interim financing, and then after the project is bid, you would close on the safe drinking water loan, and at that loan closing, then you would be reimbursed for those design costs, and it's all eligible under the loan, including any interim interest costs are eligible under the loan.
Is there any reason why we'd be denied the loan, or not, the loan wouldn't cover the full amount?
Historically, DNR has been able to provide loan funds to every eligible project.
So we have to still go out and get our own money to start this, and then we kind of replenish that once we get this bigger loan for the entire $2.5 million.
And as I say, that's typical. I mean, I work personally, I work in a lot of communities a lot smaller than Cambridge, and they just obviously don't have the means to, pay this kind of upfront cost for the design and all the other work that goes into the project before you close on the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. So it's very typical. Usually they'll go to a local bank and get interim financing.
All right. So you're hearing all this, right, Eric?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And remember, this is the utility. It's not village funds. It's the utility funds paying for it.
Ultimately, the ratepayers are going to pay for this.
Yeah, but do they have the ability to get a short-term loan? I don't know.
But it is not, it will be paid by ratepayers, not through the village budget.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm looking at the mechanics of how this thing goes through. Okay. Other questions? Well, does anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept MSA's proposal to go ahead with the engineering fees, et cetera, for well number 3.
In the amount of the $237,498.
What we're doing is accepting the scope of the project and the engineering services. We're not paying them anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Those numbers are subject to change if need, but we're accepting the scope of the project and the engineering services.
I will
Okay.
second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Whitmer,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes.
Gallant,
Yes.
Kumier,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Franklin.
Yes.
McNally.
Yes. It's a lot of money. And thank
Safe
you.
drinking water.
Yeah, I know. We got to do it. I mean, we've got big bills coming. Okay, Dan, thank
What
you.
we would do next then is provide the actual contract,
Correct.
and for your review, communities will also often have their attorney review the contract as well. It's a big document, unfortunately, with a lot of boilerplate, but it will obviously include this scope and this fee. And I assume that was what you were mostly interested in.
Yeah, we're with that.
Then they can turn their team loose and start getting this thing, getting the documents prepared.
Right, and then is water and sewer apply for that loan? Temporary loan?
We'll probably continue working with MSA on that portion of it.
Yeah, we typically help communities. We develop the loan application, we do the loan administration. So we'll contact you about the details for that. But the loan itself would typically be taken out by the village because they're the entity with the borrowing capacity.
So you're then working with the village,
Right.
and who's covering the loan? You said it was Badger Bank, but now you're saying that.
Well, it's, typically it will be a revenue bond.
Okay.
So it'll be a bond based on the water revenues.
Okay.
But again, typically the actual loan is obtained by the village. But it doesn't, it doesn't count against your GO borrowing capacity because it's a revenue bond, not a GO bond.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I bring something up real quick? So I think this kind of ties into the solar project. Before we sign a contract, we want to see the PSC, what happens with the PSC. Because if everything moves forward as planned to that, we're not going to be able to expand probably per that evaluation output plan. So it might not make sense to have wells and output of that size. This is something I'm kind of related.
Well, it's sort of related, but yet the DNR has mandated us.
Yeah.
But they're not
well,
demanding the rate, the water capacity that we need. And so I think that's what you're getting at, Chuck,
Yeah.
right? Is, I mean, if we can't grow, we're never going to get to what this potential growth is coming off of. If we're landlocked, we're going to stay more or less what our population is today for the next 30, 25, 50 years. And so it doesn't make sense to spend all that money and put it all on the ratepayers for the next 20 years and sort of just ruin it for the time being.
How does the capacity of the well affect its overall cost? So if the capacity goes from 600 to, if you're saying that you need to have a more conservative growth number to, I don't know, 350, is that a real cost
Yeah,
difference? I mean,
there's
the well
a-
has to be
there's
fixed regardless.
There's a very significant economy of scale. In terms, the treatment equipment, essentially, there's two components. There's pressure filtration for iron and manganese removal. So, for example, I'm trying to think how to put this in numbers, I guess. What we'd be looking at for 600 gallons per minute, and I think we indicate that in here, would be a vessel that's 10 feet in diameter and 24 feet long, and that's the size you would need for the appropriate loading rate. So that's for 600 gallons per minute. So if you were designing for, I think your previous consultant was only looking at 400 gallons a minute.
At the most.
So it'd be 2/3 of the size, but the size is, I guess, relative. You'd be looking at probably an 8-foot diameter vessel instead of 10 foot, and it might then be 16 feet long or 20 feet long instead of 24. So
Is it like the difference between building a 3-bedroom house and a 4-bedroom house?
yeah, that's probably a good analogy.
Does
Okay.
anything have to go into the equipment, though, too, besides the actual capacity, but also the equipment, too?
Well, that's what I'm referring to, is the size of these the vessels for filtration, and likewise for the softening vessels, instead of 2 6-foot diameter vessels, we're probably looking at 2 6.5-foot diameters. So the economy of scale is very significant. The vessels just don't get that much bigger. So I can't really, well, first of all, we don't really know about the accuracy of the 2.5 million. So I
Right.
can't really put a figure to it and say, well, because of larger capacity, it might be another $100,000. I just don't know sitting here. I can't answer that question. But like I said earlier, we believe that although there will be some increase in cost for the equipment because of its capacity, we think that there's some savings to be had in a more efficient building design.
Mm-hmm.
I think it still warrants the Water and Sewer Committee to consider over time, if things don't go the right direction that we want to for solar and we are locked in, what is the cost going to be? I think I'd like to know, I think long term, is the cost for this versus 400 capacity significantly different?
And what are the specific requirements from the DNR?
Well, I was gonna say,
That's
the issue we're facing is the timeline we're faced with. We can't wait what happens with the solar panels, and then start doing the engineer plans and then go out to bid into PSC and DNR, we're never gonna meet our
Their
timeline.
timeline.
So, I mean, I guess rather than slowing it down, I guess in parallel, what would be the difference if we were to say growth does not change or is very minimal, it isn't going to grow by 20% in 20 years, but is going to grow by 3% because we're landlocked? What would that look like from your sort of similar study, your analysis? What would that equipment or capacity need to be? And then I think, what would the cost be?
Well, one thing, we could add Oakland as ratepayers at some point. Put in the infrastructure, the water mains, et cetera, for the village of Oakland. And, because wells aren't going to last forever, and that may change at some point, just like toilets do.
I don't want to speak for Chuck, but I think thinking for myself, sewer is already expensive. Water is going to get more expensive. It's just a known fact with this. It's going to be even more expensive if we have no growth and we just stay at where we're at for the next 20 years. And we may have another problem because people are not going to want to move here because of both the solar farm and now the water rates are absurd. There are already people complaining about it
Well, if
all
we
the
wait
time.
another 10 years, we can add a couple more $1 million to the project.
I'm not saying stop.
Yeah,
I think what I'm
okay.
saying is just consider the
All right.
cost.
A question to you, Dan, as the engineering and plans, would you be able to get to what they're asking, you know, what the difference would be?
It would be relatively easy, you know, because we can go to equipment manufacturers and say, you know, what does this equipment cost for 400 gallons a minute? What does it cost for 600 gallons a minute? And we can, you know, give you a number, whether that's $100,000 or whatever it is, I don't know.
My question for you would be
But to
then,
translate that into a water rate then is much more difficult.
Yeah, no, I think the equipment's enough. I mean, if we're going to be asking the difference between 100,000 more or 500,000 more or 1 million more, whatever, I'm just making up numbers now, but I think that's going to be a very noticeable very quickly. We're going to either say, like, we really need to consider this, or if we're already going to ask for 2.5 million, what's 2.6 million?
Yeah.
well,
What's 100?
the next phase of this was to bring back well 2 to what it was, right?
Yeah,
The following year.
And that's
So-
gonna cost money also.
Right, so if we're over capacity, I know that might be a time frame where we wouldn't know.
The key or the thought there is that, okay, you put in new water treatment facilities at well 3, 600 gallons a minute, that's great, you got plenty of capacity there. But what if well 3 is out of service for any length of time? Then you're relying on the single well 2 again, just kind of like you are now. So what capacity should you have at well 2? I'm saying, you know, not necessarily 600 gallons a minute at well 2 also, because in all likelihood, well 3 is not going to be out of service for a significant amount of time. You do have water in storage to meet peak day demands if well 3 happen to be out of service. But I think there, like I said earlier, there's some low-hanging fruit there that you could restore the capacity of well 3 back to its original 350 gallons a minute.
Would that offset any sort of savings that we may have gotten by going down to 400 gallons?
Not really, because again, you want to look at the two facilities independently.
Sure.
I guess if we're going to do that, I want to look at, I'm not sure that 400 gallons a minute is a good number, even if you don't grow at all, because these facilities are sized based on peak day water demand, and the standard engineering practices design those so that if your biggest well is out of service, you can meet your peak day water demand by not pumping more than 18 hours per day. So we'd want to look at, you know, again, your historic peak day demands. If you don't grow at all, what capacity do you need to keep that pumping under 18 hours a day? And that, I just have a feeling that number is in our 10-page evaluation, but I got to go back and revisit it.
Yeah, based on the assumed historic peak water demands of 525 gallons per day, the projected 2043 peak day water demand is 630,000 gallons per day. There's
projected.
calculations in there as well.
But that's based on the growth, right, of the next
Right.
20 years.
Yeah, so we'd back off to the, well, essentially, I guess it would be 80% of 600, right?
So basically, we have to add
Yeah.
700 people to our
480.
population. by
Yeah, well,
2043.
don't forget, we've got a new customer.
Hmm.
And he's sitting back there.
Offsetting mouse.
He likes water.
Yeah.
As long as it's quality water.
Yeah.
That's the one thing nobody said. It's all about that.
Yeah.
Quality
And I
water.
appreciate what you're saying. And I don't, if we have to do this, I mean, we have
Yeah, we
no
have to.
room to extend it another 6 months because
No,
of,
no. We have to do this.
yes, okay, that's what I'm asking. I
Right.
mean,
We put this off too long now.
I know, thank you.
But I think what Wyatt's saying is to what extent, to what
Right.
capacity?
That's what Chuck has brought up, so
I think it was explained pretty well.
I think we have to do it, even if we don't know the answers to some of the other bigger,
Like I said, it's during the engineering and plans.
Yeah,
We
we,
have those kind of numbers, you know, what could it come down to and what would the cost of this be? And is it worth a project that large if it's a minimal amount to add to the full capacity?
yeah, my gut feeling is you're gonna be looking at something less than 5%, the cost savings. But we can look at strictly from capital cost numbers based on, estimated equipment costs. Yeah, we can provide those numbers.
all right, any other, you kind of voted already on this.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Quality of water is very, very important.
You bet. That's number
Okay.
one.
All right, thank you,
All
Dan,
right, thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much.
Dan.
Okay, let's moving on. Discussion and possible action in unfinished business pertaining to the Energy Subcommittee. Wyatt.
Yeah, I'll start. I actually have a report. I guess we missed us on the report piece, but I'll give sort of an update because we had a meeting last week. Couple things, and this will cover a lot of the first couple items here because I'm not necessarily asking for action on the first few. They're more updates. So as we've sort of last came to the board asking for sort of reaching out to the community, we have engaged the school district in Cambridge. So Jim Womble from the school district has joined us as a liaison. So he's not a voting member, but he is liaison. Along with that, we also reached out. I sent an outreach letter yesterday to Christiana, the town, and village of Deerfield, and the school district of Deerfield to invite them to join us too. Sort of similar thing. A liaison, what are their concerns, what's going on. I think we have our own concerns here in Cambridge, and that's not necessarily going to stop us on what we're doing in planning, but we are a broader community, and most of this, the entire project is not in Cambridge, so we want to know what is Christiana thinking, what is the Township of Deerfield thinking, to make sure that we aren't sort of both coming to the table and having mixed messages here to the PSC, to Dane County, to Invenergy, et cetera. Along with that, we are considering presenting at the Dane County ZLR, an upcoming meeting there. So they are open to us. Roxy actually reached out to them along with two other residents around the concerns, and they offered to allow people to speak. So I've heard Mark Cook and Christiana is going to plan to speak. We also have been given the option to, so we're starting to plan that out and figure out exactly what we would say and when. Which sort of part of that, we are setting up a session with Murphy Desmond, our attorney, to provide an update and discuss next steps. So we're going to have sort of a mini session to just catch our attorney up to speed, and then present sort of some of that to the entire committee coming up soon.
What's the ZLR?
Zoning and land regulation.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So they are involved to a degree, so that's why they got sort of involved, and Invenergy actually did present to them, so we wanted to also have an opportunity to speak too. Let's see, the other two things that I want to touch on before I sort of discuss what Dean had mentioned during public comment is we had a couple of members visit Badger Hollow. Sort of the report they gave, it's a construction site. It's under construction. What's unique there, I think, versus the project that's being proposed here is that from as far as they can tell sort of visually, it is offset from Cobb and the other larger village there, about 2 miles. So you can't really see it when you're in Cobb. It doesn't exist until you sort of go over the hill. It's still large, but you don't see it. You see the wind turbines, but those have been there way before the solar farm came. So that's obviously different than what is being proposed here. It will be very visible as you're driving up based on sort of where they're siting some of the solar arrays, which is why we have some of those major concerns. And then the last piece, we're also reviewing and considering potentially looking into partnering with Christiana or just potentially doing it on our own, an economic impact study. So Invenergy did one, but we want to potentially look at that too, because that might be something to sort of build some additional leverage sort of to our points of our concerns. So then the last point, the real only one that we may have something to do here is the public comment to the PSC. So 2 things. One, as Dean said, public comment, the first round, to my understanding, ends July 3rd. That doesn't mean there won't be more rounds. I don't fully understand how many rounds there might be or won't be. I think that's sort of a PSC decision after that point. Since we're interveners, or assume we will be approved to be an intervener, we will be able to continue to be at the table, but we may want to consider submitting an actual public comment beyond our intervener letter. Either the statement we've already made, which is obviously has concerns but doesn't necessarily state the specific we are opposed to this as it's proposed, or potentially amend what we've already said and say specifically we are opposed to the proposal as it is. So.
Can I make a remark on that? Or is that out of order? An informational remark.
How long is it going to take you?
Very short.
All right, you got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Badger Hollow is 3,500 acres. This one's going to be 7,000 acres. If they take advantage of using the other acres, it'd be 11,900 acres. So, the comparisons are apples and oranges.
Thank you. Dean, you went down, you had a visit at Badger Hollow, correct?
I did a drive-by inspection of the place. It's a construction zone. Just like Wyatt says, you don't see it as you drive down the road. You got to get off the beaten path to see it, and it is out in the middle of fields, not out surrounding residentials. So it's out in the middle of nowhere.
I know that Jeff Millsap, who serves on this committee, and we went down last week to look at it. And we were in Cobb, Wisconsin, and Montfort. And you are correct. It's on old farms. It's 2 miles by 2 miles, and it is ugly. It's just, they weren't operational. They just had rows and rows and rows and rows, and they went on for some distance. And Jeff was attempting to measure the ground, but because they weren't operational, there was no temperature. I mean, he was picking it up, but that was just ambient. And I thought to myself, this is not what we have here in Cambridge. I mean, it's right up against our borders. I mean, we've got a village, which is the only one that's like that. There it is out, and farms were taken out. All you saw left was maybe a silo and some old buildings, a shed or something like that. Whereas with ours, or what they're proposing for our location.
And you could not see it from Highway 18.
Yeah, I was looking for it.
I was looking for it too, and I couldn't see it from Highway 18.
Yeah.
And here on 12 and 18, we're going to have solar panels supposedly on both sides of the road coming into Cambridge.
Okay. All right, so that was Jeff Millsap and I, and Dean taking a look at it. So what else do you need us to do here tonight?
I think it's the one thing I was saying, which is, do we want to amend our statement to specifically say opposition and then submit that to the public, to the PSC as public comment, or do we submit the statement that I've already made that we recommended from the Energy Subcommittee, and it's in our notes, sort of. It doesn't specifically say opposition, it says we have concerns, and then we list them. But I
What's
think
our legal representation say?
we haven't asked them specifically. I can ask them next week, but I mean, public comment ends July 3rd, so we would not be able to have another village board meeting by then. We will have a subcommittee meeting next week, so if we feel comfortable with whatever we'd come up with at the subcommittee meeting, to potentially add opposition to that based on what they say. So.
Well, I think we need to state that we oppose it.
Why?
Well, you accept it?
No, I'm asking you why. Why should we state that?
Huh?
Why should we state that?
I think it's just,
May I address the board, please?
Yes, you may, Dean.
Thank you.
Can you do it up here, though?
Oh, sure. I got this, the next one here, too. Mr. Isabel, do you want me to bring the map up so the public can see the map of the area? Is that okay?
no?
My statement in regards to do we oppose the application as presented, in my opinion, as a citizen, not as other things, then this way the public can kind of see what is going to transpire. I hope we can zoom in on that. My opinion is the application has been presented to the PSC. PSC is going to either accept it or reject it. We can make motions as a village to, we want this, we want that. The PSC is not going to change that application.
That's right.
If they wish to resubmit amendments to this application, we may come back as a board and accept that. But as it stands today, the application's there. I think we should reject the application or oppose the application as presented to the PSC. Plain and simple, done.
I thought our position, Wyatt, was that we were in opposition, and during our board meeting we discussed this. Our position was our focus was going to be the ETZ.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So where do we stand with the ETZ portion of that?
We still, to the same point, we still have those concerns. We've specifically said we want it to be set back out of that area, sort of that section. It's not our entire ETZ. Because our ETZ
Mile and a half
goes,
to 2 miles.
yeah, but
something along
that sort of, that one section that is sort of on our western border. Because
Right.
obviously to the north, I think there is some there. If you were to go sort of our full ETZ, it goes, I mean, it's a radius, goes
Right, I
around
got
us.
you.
So we care less, I think, as you get north of State Farm Road. I mean, it's still close, but you aren't going to really see
North
it.
of 134.
Right.
But the other direction, west, is where we care the most. But again, I think, I don't know, it's sort of the legalese here of, we didn't say opposition.
need-
Are we okay with just putting that in there? I don't know.
We need legal.
We,
And, you know,
We
and
paid for legal representation.
Like Wyatt said, if the committee feels, once we meet with the attorneys and they say, yes, this is a good step to take,
Yeah.
if you grant the subcommittee the permission to, yes, submit a simple statement that we are opposed to it as presented,
Mm-hmm.
not going into reasons, explanations, details, but
but isn't that what we wrote? We wrote
we
our
did not put
four-
opposition. We said, these are our concerns.
and they
and
are
we
our
want to move
concerns,
forward.
and now,
They are.
okay.
Are
We're
we-
splitting hairs a little bit, but I mean, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I mean,
Well, I
it's-
don't think we are. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a pretty big hair to split.
yeah, so I
Are
mean,
we
that's,
opposed to it as presented?
Yes.
The board hasn't taken that stance, though. That's what we're asking.
Well, I
Is
think
the
we should then.
board opposed to it as presented?
And I'm fine with that, as long as we get our legal representation that we
To say
paid
it
for
is a-
to give that, to grant that. And I'm willing to say, we'll push it to the subcommittee to make that call. I'm willing to make that motion to allow the subcommittee to make that call once we get, because there is a timing mechanism. I understand that, Dean, that there is some timing issues here. But, I mean, we granted the up to $5,000, so we might as well utilize it and see what their opinion is.
Yep.
And the subcommittee can move forward with that. And if it's a simple statement of opposition as presented, and the lawyer, checks that box, then I'm fine with it.
But ultimately, then we've got to get their specifications changed at the PSC for this to really matter.
Well,
That's
that's,
just-
That's a different
that's
topic.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Dean, it looks like you have a comment.
If it's the word opposed, and we state we do not like the application,
That's what we wrote, though.
we've already wrote opposition.
In the original?
We did,
No.
when we wrote the thing, that letter I said, we opposed.
Yeah.
We didn't ask legal counsel that.
For the
Correct.
junkyard, or
Yeah.
for the
So why can't we
recycling
just use
center.
that same statement?
What do you gain with that statement versus what we just all agreed to?
The application as proposed, that's all I'm asking. They proposed an application.
Right, and I
They
got your
accepted it.
application, we wrote that letter, or we put that letter together as a board.
That letter, the letter was on
For
a
the-
different
so-
project.
Yeah, it was for the
That was on the
junkyard.
Totally
recycling
different
center.
Not the junkyard, right.
Yeah.
This letter in front of you is opposing, our letter to Christiana opposing the junkyard, the salvage yard
Correct.
that was
I'm
supposed
not, I'm not,
Yeah.
I just happened, that's the only piece of paper that I'm staring at.
The motion by the board in the past on the solar project was, here's our concerns.
Right.
And we want to move forward. It didn't say we're opposed to the project as presented. We have concerns about it. I think one concern, and this is where I want to talk to legal counsel to see what steps should we be taking?
What do we
hurts us,
benefit
what
from by
harms us?
saying, what do we benefit from by putting the word opposition, going back to
If
legal
we don't
counsel?
put anything, is it then assume that we're supportive of the project?
Well, I don't think we're supportive if we've listed our concerns.
but is that strong enough to the PSC?
Does it need to be
deny
stronger?
the project? I don't think so.
And that's a great question to ask our legal counsel.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So I get what you're suggesting, Chris. Do you want to make a motion to that?
Well, I think the motion would have to be something along the lines of granting Wyatt's subcommittee permission to make that call because of the timing constraints.
Okay.
So I will make said motion to allow after, and I understand your point, Dean, as well, is, hey, we didn't seek legal counsel on this, but, to use your point, sir, apples and oranges. We're talking about a salvage yard, and then we're talking about a multi-million-dollar solar project here as well. So I'll make that motion to allow the Energy Subcommittee to, after seeking legal counsel, to move forward with the verbiage on whether we put in opposition or whatever else they seek.
All right. Any discussion?
Then does that come back here for us to vote on, or we're just letting the
Nope.
sub?
No, subcommittee
we don't
can
have
make that
time.
call.
Okay.
Time's over with.
Yeah, I'm going to march to the floor.
Um,
Don't worry, it'll be short.
Mark, I
Very
think
short.
Roxy has something to say.
Very short. Yes, go ahead.
I feel like the group is afraid of them, but I think we need them to be afraid of us.
Okay.
And it's the water of the flea. The flea is very small, they're very big, but a flea drives the big person or thing crazy.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Roxy?
Yeah, I just have an email here concerning about using the word opposition from Rob Danielson, who helped you out before.
Okay.
And he said, current stances and hard negotiations create the most opportunities with the PSC.
All right. Thank you. That's relevant. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, motion carries. This goes back to the subcommittee, and they'll get legal review.
All I would ask Wyatt is that you back brief us on what the decision was.
Yeah, of course. We certainly will. We have our meeting with our legal counsel Tuesday morning, and then we'll present that to the subcommittee that evening on Tuesday next week.
Thank
And
you.
we can send you guys sort of a email communication, and then obviously present whatever we plan at our next village board meeting after in July. So.
Okay. Thanks.
And I just want to say publicly at this time, Wyatt, I think you're doing a great job. That is not an easy position for you to be in, and there's a lot of information to process, and we're far from over with this, but thank you for what you're doing on behalf of Cambridge.
One quick note.
Dean.
Why did you talk about the economic impact?
I did. I mentioned that we are discussing it and still sort of figuring out exactly what are we going to do.
What?
Mr. Chair, I wanted to present this to the board.
Uh,
I forgot to put it in here, but this is just more informational.
Okay.
This was one of the studies that they did in the PSCs, and I kind of highlighted one of their market impact studies. And going back to Dan and well, I'm glad the village is looking forward to growing. I am glad we're making that decision moving forward. We have a water treatment facility that is set to go to handle twice as many houses as we have. We have a school that we built that is looking to get another 500, 600 students in it. So we have the capacity of the village to grow. Now, I hope we grow. That was one of the comments that was put in the study by Energy, and we had that out the last weekend, and we gave it to Mr. Wamble at the school. But the comment that they made, in my opinion, how I read it, he says it's not going to affect the school because we don't have to worry about extra kids in the school. That's not what we want. We want to grow. That study right there just says, hey, we're not having any developments. We don't have to worry about kids. That is not a good study to have.
And they just put those words in our mouth that we're not going to have any further development.
That's on the PSC docket report, and that's their own words.
That's right.
That they want us to not worry about our schools because we're not going to have kids. It's not the way to look. We want to look forward, and that's why we have the infrastructure in place.
Ted, you were going to get cost estimates for an economic study, did you?
I haven't got that yet.
Okay.
Working on it.
Okay.
It's many, many pages long. I just printed out the one page, and I just wanted to put the schools in there, so that was just more for informational for your all here.
I didn't realize, I'm going to ask you a question here, Dean. It says in here, highlighted, taxes paid by solar farms can benefit schools with greater funding. I didn't think they were paying any taxes.
It's the utility aid fund. What they're saying is the utility aid fund could be used to help pay for the schools, but that is on Christiana to then choose to spend that money for our schools versus we get that money directly or our school gets that money directly. It's essentially they can choose to do whatever they want with their money that they're going to be receiving for this, just like they choose today with the RockGen plant and things like that. So whether they funnel that into the schools or they use it to pay for whatever they want.
That's up to Christiana.
Yep. So.
Okay.
So I look forward to growing as a community.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else have anything on this before we move on? Okay. Let's go on to item B under 9, the Fire Commission update. Chris, what can you tell us about the building subcommittee?
On June 17th, we had a meeting. We went through the call to order and attendance, and we verified that there was public notice. And then we left for Deerfield to tour their facilities because they had some time constraints on when we could come out there. And we went through, and they gave us a very in-depth tour of their facilities. Then we came back and we discussed the different tours from Marshall, Fort Atkinson, and Deerfield. There was a blurb that was the chair, Mr. Hines, read from the citizens group that was presented to him via the website. He read through that. No further action taken there. There was some talk about advertising, signage. I know I specifically asked the question of who was going to pay for that, and it was kind of tossed up in the air on if it's going to be the Fire Commission, donations, whatever the case is. But that was kind of left with to carry over to the next meeting. And then Sheila Palinkas read a point paper that she drafted up, basically wanting some other, entities coming in for rebidding possibilities. There was about 15 different points that she read off, possibly bringing in some contractors like Ryan Brothers to see about EMS services that they can provide, and it was not on the agenda. She was allowed to read her statement, but then there was no action taken. So then she's going to present it at the next meeting, more in depth, because it'll be on the agenda. And I think that pretty much wrapped it up.
It did.
Okay. Any questions for Chris? The commission itself has not met. They will be meeting this Thursday. They will be meeting at the high school, and they're looking for some public input on this. And at that time, I will be sharing with them the vote that was taken by this board at our last meeting. Then until we have more information, we are not in support of this. We just don't know what numbers they're talking about. Right. And speaking of the referendum, I have talked with Lisa because there is a timing issue. And these numbers have to be firmed up. We have to know exactly what that referendum is going to be saying by approximately the 1st of August. There's a few days in there. I don't know if it's 90 or what. But if you look at August, September, and October, the election is right away in November. And so I don't know if they can come up with all of this hard information in the next month. But I will be bringing that to their attention at the meeting. So, those are the 2 items. Questions?
Yeah, why did the fire commission decide to hold this meeting at the school instead of punting that to the building review commission? Because we're supposed to be gleaning that information and then feeding it to the fire commission.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just because at the time they were worried about spacing and they wanted to, they thought there'd be a lot of people turning out and you needed to have it in the school. I don't know.
Subcommittee could meet at the school, though.
Right, we're kind of jumping the timeline quite a bit.
Oh, we are. They are.
The subcommittee was created to look at what the next steps are. They should be the ones getting the public input, not the commission.
Yeah, I mean, again, it defeats the purpose of having
Of
a
the
subcommittee if
subcommittee.
the commission's going to do the. But I just wanted to know who made that decision. Was that
I can't remember.
All right.
I can't help you on that one. Okay. Anything else?
Question. So, it feels like we're back where we were at the end of last year, which is, what do we either move along with everyone else? And I don't know the opinions of the rest of the municipalities in here, but if they're in favor of the referendum this fall, however it plays out, are we in the same position we were at the end of last year, which is, do we separate from the commission, or do we stay with it and suck it up and just move forward?
can't afford to
Because, I mean, it feels like we're in the same place we were last year, which is that sort of difficult decision. We came up with our own numbers because they weren't doing anything, and then they threw some numbers at it last minute. I'm just wondering, like, what do we do? Like, should we, because we only have a month, and obviously we've got a couple more board meetings, but.
I guess a question to pose to the commission, are they going to be more prepared this time, providing the municipalities with the information needed? Because, yeah, last time we were correcting the referendum language that they presented.
Didn't
They had
Rockdale
incorrect
also
information.
state, Rockdale and Lake Mills state that they were keeping their yes vote?
As long as the price point didn't
increase.
change.
Oh, well, that's maybe an issue.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I'm just wondering so I think the other question the commission is also, are they moving forward with this? Are they moving forward with pushing this referendum and doing a referendum in their own individual municipalities for this fall? Or are they in a similar spot to we are, which is, what are we doing?
I don't think that this is me now interpreting what I've heard. I
Yeah.
don't think that Rockdale and Lake Mills feel that they have to do anything so
Mhm.
long as the number stays at the 6.5 million.
Yep.
They have authorization. Now, if these numbers come in, and I've been hearing 8, 9 million, that's, I think, going to change the calculus for everybody. Now, whether you can get that on the ballot for this fall, highly doubtful. I just don't see how, because they're still looking at different buildings. They don't have different contractors to come in and say, oh, we'll take a look at this and bid it. And I know from experience, it's going to take you at least 2 weeks. If you gave it to a contractor right now, it would take 2 weeks for them to be able to, all right, here's what we're going to have for electrical, here's what we're going to have for plumbing, here's what we're going to have for rock and paint and, you know, roofing and everything else. They can't come up with a bid between now and when, or a number between now and when we would have to publish it, which would be the beginning of August. And that's where I don't think the commission understands that. And I will be bringing that up.
Well, if you put it out, then you're putting it out for bid, and you need a set of plans and specifications.
But you don't be bringing it up on a referendum issue this fall.
A couple questions for the commission. Are they engaging legal counsel before to help shepherd? Is the referendum the right thing to do? Is there enough time? Do we have the information? What is the language? Not right before, like it was last time, not having the information. Answering some of the questions. Townships don't have to have a referendum. They can have a vote by their citizens. They could have a town meeting and have a vote instead.
That's what Oakland plans on doing.
The other issue out there is we still have the agreement that was signed by all 5 communities saying a referendum has to pass. Has the commission gotten legal counsel advice? We don't have that. What happens if Oakland doesn't go to a referendum? What happens to that legal document that was signed by all 5 communities? The commission has to be responsible and take the action beforehand to get those answers instead of, well, we'll change it later.
Yeah.
You know, that's still a legal document that was signed by all 5 communities saying it has to pass a referendum by all 5 communities.
Has Christiana settled what they're doing at Pizza Pit? They want to,
No,
so they haven't even finished the results from the last one?
They
Haven't
haven't.
settled?
that hasn't
They're
been.
gonna work on it.
The commission needs to have legal counsel, and it has to be clear on where
What
they
are our
stand.
steps going forward?
Okay.
We're not,
I will be bringing this up, but I would ask if any of the trustees here, if you are looking to sit in on Thursday evening, 6:30 at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. So we'll go with that. Okay, going to move on. Correspondence, there is none. So upcoming meetings, June 24th, Public Works, June 29th, Energy Subcommittee, July 6th, Economic Development, July 7th, Board of Review, the 12th is the Plan Commission, July 13th, Village Board, 20th is Water and Sewer, and again, the 27th is the Village Board. Questions to referrals to staff, future agenda items. We've got 3 of these here, correct, Lisa? That are coming up. Updates from Carol Sapienza, Kate McGinnity, and then also allowed and unnecessary
I
noises.
didn't get that ordinance ready for today, so
Okay.
I'll get
Oh,
that on
same one as,
that we had
Okay.
last. I wasn't able to.
that's
get
fine.
that.
I thought there was more noise.
No, so
Okay.
I'm still working on
Could-
revising that.
As long as we've got Kate coming in, could we get the Jefferson County Supervisor?
We could invite her to come.
Yeah. I mean, both of them. I work with both of the ladies on the Cambridge Area Senior Resource Network.
And I want to thank Kate McGinnity, got us all our new directories, so she's done
All
very
right.
well.
Nice of her.
So
Dane County having-
Okay.
Dane County Parks.
Anybody care to,
Yeah, there is.
Oh, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Wait,
That's
No.
your job.
I'm sorry.
There was,
I did send out to all the board members that Dane County Parks is having a meeting out in Camrock Parks, if any of you want to attend.
And they're going to the bear cave.
Oh, are they gonna go in there?
Yes, they're doing a tour of the bear cave
Yeah.
tomorrow.
So I did send that out to everyone if you are interested in attending that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else?
Can I do it? I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I,
But who's going to do the, at least the 60,000?
The town of Oakland.
Town of Oakland.
It's their road. It's their road.
their road.
It's their road.
Okay,
But the alternative is go with the agreement and continue.
And we'll continue to maintain it after they resurface their
Absolutely.
road, after whatever maintenance, after whatever rehabilitation they need to do on their road, we can continue to maintain it.
Just snowplow it. and-
But if they say, if we have to rehabilitate the road, we want to take back over maintenance of it,
That's
then
fine, too.
they can have it.
well,
You should define maintenance.
There's a lot of net agreement.
yeah,
that should be
that's,
defined.
that's where this thing's going to come down. I mean, we can say that, but then they're going to come back and say, we've been giving you the road for the last, what, 2006.
A
Doing the
thousand,
maintenance.
And we've been
we've
doing
been,
it.
we've been plowing. Believe me, the plowing has probably cost more
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
and the
$1,000
And the
a month.
potholes and all that
crap.
stuff.
Exactly.
But they could argue, and
They're
then,
getting a heck of a deal.
They've been getting a great deal.
They can argue it, but the state is still giving them the road aid.
Yeah.
and I,
It's, so they can
I
argue
think
over
that
it.
is a reasonable interpretation. Maintenance is not replacement. I mean, you
I
use
agree.
the word rehabilitation. I agree with that, but that may take another voice to get that. Because we're not going to go and do what they did. They went ahead and hired an attorney, and they gave us a legal opinion from the
They
attorney.
gave us an email. It wasn't a true, the email said, yep, maintenance means they'd have to replace the road. Well,
Well, I
we
pay an
could-
attorney enough, they're gonna say whatever I want.
Right, and that's what I told them already. And then, we can go get one ourselves, and are you gonna look at ours any stronger or, with less enthusiasm than we looked at yours? No, no. We're only wasting money. So can we go to arbitration? Yes, but then I don't want it to be something where when we're done, the losing side, and there will be one, says, well, we don't like that decision that was made, so we're not going to live with it. And that's where we'd have to agree to it with binding that we went in, and then we'd have to have it with a third party. But if we don't want to do that,
I got a feeling at this point, they wouldn't even wanna split the costs with the third party.
you're kind of right on that. I've already, I'm looking at options here, and
Yeah.
I don't think that that's going to happen. So what are we
Well, how did
saying
you
then?
get Blue Jay Way fixed or repaired?
They have to decide, it's their road. That's the only thing I can see. It's their road. I
Sue?
can't imagine another municipality coming in and saying to us, let us help you with that, can we give you some money?
Yeah. Susan, you were going to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, I go with number one and let them pay the whole thing.
So I'll make a motion that our negotiation, or our offer to the town of Oakland is that we maintain the current agreement, or that we continue as stated in the current agreement, and they are responsible for the rehabilitation of the road.
Rehabilitation needs to be in that.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. Further questions? All right. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of passing that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay? Me? I think we should go with, go to the state for dispute resolution providers. And I say that, and full disclosure, I sat next to these people, the intergovernmental relations folks, and I asked in their professional experience, when municipalities get to an impasse where an agreement is not clear, what normally happens, and they say, if you get one of these mediators, it's amazing that you will come to an agreement, and both sides will be agreeable to that agreement. What we have in place is not a formal state-sanctioned agreement, so it doesn't meet state standards, so in its current form isn't binding, but in its current form is binding. So it's this quasi that I don't like.
Good point.
Well, I know this isn't part of the discussion because it's our, but my opinion is still, it's their road, let them pay for it.
Nope.
If it's not a state-sanctioned agreement, okay, we can live without the agreement. I don't care.
just don't want to kick this disagreement about the agreement
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
Sure, we fix the road, have them fix the road.
Yeah.
That's great, but there's a bigger issue here that I don't like, that there's this.
And that could be a separate
And
issue
I think,
later.
yeah, we should bring
Should
that up
be.
as that's a good point,
That's a
Eric.
good-
I think we should bring that up as a separate agreement,
Separate issue
point.
later.
Mhm.
Well, that
We've got
could be-
other roads to deal with, not
Yeah.
just this Blue Jay Way.
Yep.
Right.
Well, we
And if you
can,
drive down North Street, you
Right.
agree to that.
Well, we had that lady that was from North Street that was
Right.
there complaining
But that'd be
that
the end of the world for that.
if we put curb and gutter in, then her
So
well would run
Right.
dry.
do we want Tom to be at that intergovernmental meeting so he can give us his opinion from maintenance versus rehabilitation?
Yes.
Tom, would you be able to attend that meeting?
On the 31st.
I think so.
I did get word from Oakland today. It is being held at Oakland because this room is being used. Both rooms are being used. But it is us hosting the meeting. So we will be doing the agenda and hosting the meeting at their location.
And it will be later, like to 7 o'clock?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can.
all right, so we're all right on this first part, but now getting back to what Eric is saying, the second part, and that is the whole arbitration. All right. Do we, if we don't prevail on the first part, and I don't think we're going to, and they're not going to agree, do we want to then throw up the idea that we go to arbitration?
I have a question. What do you mean they're not going to agree?
Well, I don't think they're going to. They're just going to say, well, you know,
They're going to dig in with their document they have
Yeah.
in front of them and saying, you signed this document. And it's good, it's binding for 10 years. We signed it in, what, 2016?
It renewed in 2000.
It renewed in
2000.
six.
Renewed itself in 2016,
Right.
which is a strange clause to have in it.
I know, I agree.
Yes. And the opt-out was only in the first 10 years, not in, after that, once it renewed. There was no opt-out language.
I like the idea of what Eric is saying, and that is to get it back to somebody else. But the only way that makes sense is if we're willing to go with the binding decision. And I don't know if we want to,
Well, even if we would go with the binding decision with Oakland. go
well,
with
that,
binding.
the only way we would enter into it is if it was a simultaneous.
Following up on what Eric said a little, when I was talking to the state, they did say oftentimes it's amazing how they can bring the groups together. They may pull other things of interest that aren't necessarily in this agreement to, you know, as we look at it, we don't see that much for us in this agreement, that they do look at the whole picture and may pull other things in to get both parties to agree. So it's not strictly looking at the language of this agreement and what does maintenance mean. You know, they do expand the scope and to get to those agreements, but
Not to muddy the waters, but one other perspective to consider is that 80% of the residents on that street are village residents. And they pay the same tax rate as everybody else in the village who have curb and gutter and sidewalk in front of their homes.
So they're having to deal with a road that's dilapidated and not very functional. And they're paying the same tax rate as everybody else in the village. So just to look at it from trying to be fair to everybody in the village, you know, is that reason for the village to consider footing a portion of the bill? So, sorry for making your decision even harder.
We already made a motion, and we already accepted it.
Yeah, it's
So-
just it's the next one if we had a fallback. And Tom, I understand because this last weekend I drove my little bicycle down there and I stopped in at a residence, and he works in one town and she works over there, and he has experience with this kind of stuff, and he was like, I don't know what you're gonna do. I mean,